Hey everyone, thanks for viewing this webinar. This class we're going to be discussing the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, more commonly known as the MBTI. So just a brief outline of what we'll be going over today. First, I'll talk a little bit about the history of the MBTI and what this assessment measures, and then we'll look at the normative sample, some psychometric properties, cultural and ethical considerations, practical contributions of the MBTI, and then finally I'll discuss ways I could potentially see myself using this assessment as a professional counselor. Okay, so first of all, what is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator? The MBTI is a personality evaluation instrument that was created by the mother-daughter team Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers. It's based on the personality theory of Carl Jung, which posited that people experience the world through primary psychological functions. So first there's perceiving functions, which are either sensing or intuition, and judging functions, which are either thinking or feeling. These functions are modified by two main attitude types, which most people are familiar with, either extroversion or introversion. Myers and Briggs added another dimension to Jung's model by identifying a preference for either judging or perceiving, JP, and this has to do with how one relates to the outside world. In total, there's 16 possible personality types based on these four domains. So next up is normative sample. Early in the MBTI's development, research was done using samples of mostly high school and college students. However, the most recent national random sample, which was done in 1998, involved individuals over 18 years old who were selected through random digit dialing of telephones and using population demographic targets based on US Census. More than 8,000 people were contacted, and of those, around 4,000 who matched the census targets received the MBTI research form, as well as a thorough demographic questionnaire. With a response of about 80%, there was ultimately a sample of 3,200 US adults, and that was used for item analysis and item weighting as a foundation for scoring. This wasn't a true representative sample, however, as white women tended to be overrepresented and black men were underrepresented. So there was quite a bit of criticism in the literature of the MBTI in terms of its psychometric properties. According to Jung's theory, a person's whole type is greater than the sum of its dichotomous parts, meaning that in his view, personality is the interaction of psychological functions and not the psychological functions independent from one another. However, according to the Mental Measurements Yearbook, calculations of the F-test for four-way interactions to predict different variables, such as things like work preference, job satisfaction, and values, only predicted 3 out of 73 different dependent variables, whereas the four main effects predicted up to 36 variables. The lack of significant four-way interaction contradicts the fundamental assumption that the combination of the four scores is more important than the individual scores. Additionally, the National Academy of Sciences Committee reviewed data from over 20 MBTI research studies and concluded that only the introversion-extroversion scale has adequate construct validity, showing high correlations with comparable scales of other tests designed to assess the same concepts. The other scales, however, have shown weak validity. In terms of reliability, the MBTI again seems to fall short based on a number of reports which suggest consistently that reliability doesn't meet expectations of the theory. In one study done by McCarley and Karskadon, of 424 respondents, only 65 in the retest sample scored the same on all four domains. Most of the remaining 35% showed consistency in 3 of the 4 scales. However, again, with the theoretical emphasis on a holistic interpretation of the 4 scales, these results are kind of lacking. So now on to some cultural considerations. In a study conducted by Horikoshi, Japanese Americans were asked to complete the MBTI on 2 occasions, once as the type their culture would expect them to be, and then once again as the type that they felt they really were. So of the 113 participants, 88% got a sensing judging result based on answering from a cultural perspective, but only 40% received a sensing and judging result when they answered from their personal perspective. Additionally, the US also has a number of citizens who identify with multiple cultures. In a study done by Labarta, clients whose native language was Spanish were asked to answer the MBTI again on 2 occasions, once in the context of their Spanish environment and once in the context of their American environment. When the results were compared, clients tended to choose extroversion significantly more often in the Spanish frame of reference, indicating that the cultural context in which one takes the MBTI can influence the person's responses. So 2 areas where the MBTI is often used are in career counseling and premarital or couples counseling. And there are a couple certain ethical concerns that counselors should think about prior to administering this assessment in those contexts. According to Gardner and Martinko, people with certain personality types have been found to seek positions based on their knowledge of their own personal preference types. And due to this, it's cautioned that counselors should encourage clients not to completely eliminate certain occupations from consideration, just solely based on the belief that they aren't the right type for that job. It's imperative when using the MBTI in career counseling that counselors are mindful to inform clients that there isn't any proof to show that certain types will not perform well at any given job. So in addition to career counseling, the MBTI is also commonly used in premarital or marriage counseling settings in order to help couples identify their type as well as their partner's type and to better understand their relationship. Williams and Tappan caution that when using the MBTI in couples work, that clinicians should clearly state that types aren't indicative of successful relationships. I actually observed my supervisor working with a couple during practicum where the husband wanted a divorce and cited their MBTI types as one of the main reasons he felt like they couldn't make their marriage work. So it really is necessary to make sure clients are informed about how to appropriately interpret their results. Based on the type of assessment that the MBTI is, it doesn't really offer anything diagnostically, but it does have some practical applications. Suzuki and Ponerato suggest that in education settings, understanding a student's type can assist teachers in identifying appropriate learning styles to implement to sort of cater the educational experience to students. And these same authors also indicate that in colleges and occupational settings, types can be helpful in answering questions about what kind of work someone might find satisfying and meaningful. So for my own professional future, as a master's level clinician at one point, I will be able to administer the MBTI. However, based on some of the psychometric deficiencies mentioned before, I likely wouldn't put a lot of stock into this particular instrument. I do think that it could be useful though, just as a way to help clients gain more insight into themselves. I think as long as clients understand that their type isn't the end-all be-all, and as long as we could spend some time debriefing their results and I'm able to get their reaction to what their type is, I think I could see myself using this assessment at some point in the future. So thanks so much for attending this webinar on the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and I hope you found it informative.